All right, we have started our session 2 for Edcamp Home. This session is titled, Is EdTech Effective? And my name is Ray Fearing. I work for a school district in Northern California, and I am a teacher on special assignment, working as the Educational Technology Coordinator for the district and the county. And so I was just interested in talking with others and about how we can measure our effectiveness in the work that we do with technology integration. And Chip, why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Chip Chase. I'm the Director of Library Services and Technology Integration for pre-K through 12 charter school in Washington, D.C. that serves about 950 students. So I work with grades pre-K through 12 as the sole technology integration specialist at all levels. And I'm definitely interested in the same issues of, is technology effective? And I'm very much a proponent, as most technology specialists are, of not pushing tech for tech's sake, but really making sure that the tools we use meet the curricular needs. And managing that and kind of assessing how we're doing is really key to that, I think. So
I agree, and I do K-12 as well. We have about just under 4,000 students in our district, about 220 teachers or so, and so I'm trying to support all of them, and it's challenging. And then I also want to know, am I doing any good? How can I put things in place to measure my effectiveness and help teachers know how effective their use of technology is?
Mm-hmm. I thought I had it bad with 950, but yeah, 4,000 is a lot. I definitely agree of thinking about putting in systems in place. We've recently gone through a lot of building our curriculum for technology and coming up with benchmarks that we want all of our students to meet at each grade. And I think the next phase, we have our curricular plan set out, but now we want to really start implementing it and tracking to see how well our students are meeting those goals, both with certain kinds of assessments for students as well as for teachers in terms of how well they're doing. It's definitely key on my mind, but I think for the administration their focus is on other aspects, but the technology piece is important to me, I think. Is one of the things I'm navigating with as well.
So tell me a little bit about your curricular plan.
So what we did is we looked at the American Association of School Library, the NETS ISTE standards, and kind of what we wanted to do was make them digestible for teachers so that they could know, I'm a second grade teacher, these are all the things that I want to make sure my student knows and is able to do with technology when they leave second grade, and so on. So for our pre-K through 12 school, kind of mapping out that vertical alignment of where students should be with their technology to both make sure that they're meeting those skills as and providing appropriate interventions at certain grades is definitely part of that process. So it's really all about mapping things to the standards and also using that plan to really identify what we need to do now with our instruction. So when we rolled it out, so at my school, the library and technology were combined in one department. So the standards cover both research and information literacy skills that kind of cross both, but also literacy standards as well. So that's sort of how we've made it digestible for teachers, if that makes sense. So now our big goal is really to, now that we have this, working with teachers and saying, this is where we want students to be and how can we get there. And it's been frustrating for a lot of teachers because our technology standards are so high versus what we're doing right now is not close to where we would like our students to be.
So that's similar then to what we are doing. Right now we borrowed some other districts' work on aligning those ISTE NETS standards to grade levels, and then those NETS profiles. Have you seen those?
I have. We used a lot of those NETS profiles to build. Yeah.
So now we're rolling that out to principals, who will then roll that out to their school sites and the teachers, and letting teachers see very clearly, which is new, what they should be shooting for, what's the goal for their students to be able to do at their grade level. And so we have a PLC, we're PLCs, professional learning communities, so the goal hopefully will be that in their PLCs, part of the conversation as they're designing formative assessments and looking at curriculum will be what technology supports this. And they'll have a guide that way. Right now, they were just open to everything in the world. What should we use? This gives them that guide, I think. And so I'm hoping that that's one way we can measure our effectiveness, is if they have this guide, these standards at their grade level, that they can, if we see those being implemented, then we know, that that's being achieved and the students are getting those basic skills.
Mm-hmm. How specific do the standards get? One of the things that the teachers have been asking for is not just focusing on the skills, but really saying, now what are the tools? A lot of the teachers, what their feedback has been is the standards are helpful, but they still don't know. And I think that bridging that gap is another thing that we're trying to work with teachers. It's a little different for me because I'm at one school rather than, so that's part of, yeah. But I was wondering if you had any.
And I really would love to get a person at each school site to help and be there on site, but I think that giving them specific examples of what tools they can use and what those types of lessons might look like, I'm hoping that we can get a committee together or PLC groups together, because if it comes from the teachers, if they can brainstorm and write those things themselves, then it'll be things that I think they're more likely to implement.
Yeah.
And the other question I had also is, what technology are you focusing on? Or what's your main purchases? Or what are the main things that every teacher has that you're looking at using?
Sure. A lot of the focus is really getting students up to their basic skills. I think a lot of what we're focusing on is building out the basic skills. A lot of our students don't do much research effectively just yet. We're still just getting them typing. There's also a lot of typing interventions that we're trying to implement in the lower schools. As far as the infrastructure, we're technically 3 different schools in one building, with the library and technology as kind of one stemming throughout. So we have computer labs at each level, 1 computer lab in the library, as well as carts that teachers can use. So it's really, we also use Google Apps for education, so that's in the middle and high school. So that's the focus in the middle and high school, getting students to use that. We use the Google Scripts app and the Google Class Forms as well. But in terms of just what we're trying to roll out, really building in more of a programming kind of focus on getting those skills up, pushing students in that realm. But really where we're at right now is a lot of presentation software, PowerPoints or PowerPoint-like services is kind of where we are, and that's why we're really trying to push it and really grow with all the deeper STEM purposes, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. We're Google Apps for Ed too, and so that's a big push, is using those tools. And now that Smarter Balance is in the forefront and we're all testing this year, we did pilot last year at one of our schools, but I've been working with teachers showing them what's expected of students on the new Smarter Balance. Are you guys Park or Smarter Balance?
We're Park.
Okay. But I know from our experience that when teachers see the new tests come out and they do the practice tests, they're like, oh man, my kids need to be able to do different things. And I did 4th grade and 5th grade last year, I believe, and 6th grade also. And those teachers were like, I have to start getting my kids comfortable managing text on a screen, highlighting, typing. And so those basic skills, like you're saying, are definitely a focus, because it's going to be asked of those students now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my biggest worries, since we're not a one-to-one school, and a lot of teachers in the past were an 11-year-old, what are we now, 12-year-old school as a charter school, and we haven't had the technology that we've had. We've been building it out, so there's a lot of the previous years wanting to use the computer lab, it's always booked up, so teachers are like, well, I'm not going to worry about technology, and they've kind of removed it from a lot of their curriculum, and that's part of our goal of trying to put it back in. Just those basic skills are so low. It was what we're finding right now, and that's what I'm really worried about. We've been doing a lot with our own high school and hopefully our middle school soon. We have Schoology as well as our learning management system for middle school and high school, and we've been doing the tests and quizzes modules as well. We've been rolling that out to teachers to try and get that assessment piece going, and I think that's been going pretty well, but just the hours in the day to get students familiar with a testing environment is hard.
So I'm going to move to a little more about managing our effectiveness here. Let me see. I was going to add a link here into our chat. Do you have the chat open on the right side?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bright
Oh, I had
Byte.
that open already. Yeah, I saw that in your message. I haven't used it.
So Bright Bytes, Kristen Swanson, who is one of the founders of Edcamp, actually works for Bright Bytes, and I've been talking with her about using Bright Bytes in our district. And what they do is they measure the effectiveness of technology, your 21st century skills education in your district, and provide information for sites or the district principals, whatever level you need, as to how are your students doing with tech, how are they doing with the 21st century skills, and then what you can do to improve the areas that need improving. So they give you tools then to say, hey, you're low in this area, maybe digital citizenship, whatever, and then here's how some ideas for how to support those teachers or support those students in improving those skills. And so I'm interested in, we haven't signed up with them yet, we've been talking about it, but do you have any experience with using an outside provider to do that type of assessment?
We've dabbled with it a little bit. It's I think this is one of our next steps in part of our we have a technology team with an action plan, and finding an assessment to find out where students are is on it. We've looked at I think learning.com had one that seemed interesting, but yeah, I hadn't. This was a few years ago when we were doing some of it. I hadn't come across Bright Bytes, so I'm really interested to see what they have to offer. Most of what we were looking at was just the assessments and not the interventions or the recommendations as much, but just kind of where students are. So I like the idea of not just assessing them, but giving the framework to help them as well.
That's what I like too, because I can make a survey, which they do give a survey through Bright Bytes, and I can assess my teachers, I can assess my students a couple times a year, but can I, or your team, you know, those people, do they have the resources, the time in the day to put together the statistics, the data, put it out in a way that's digestible by the people that need it, and then provide support for improving in the areas that you're low? And so I'm very attracted to the idea of a company that can help us do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that it can get done if I don't have that support.
I agree. I mean, it's one thing to assess, but really to go further is really helpful. I'm excited about this. I hadn't come across Bright Bytes.
The neat thing, here I am. It's not a commercial for Bright Bytes. We're not even for it yet. But the one thing that really caught my eye is that they provide an infographic with your data. So a principal at a K-5 school will get a beautiful graphic, infographic with their data on their students and their teachers. And then from that, they can get links to support, to whatever you need to improve on. And they had something like, here, if you have 10 minutes at a staff meeting, do this. If you have time for something longer and more in-depth, do this. So they had stages or levels of support and training to support those areas. And I just know that principals are so busy that if they had an infographic that laid it out easily, it was very accessible, they could look at it and get what they need visually, that's going to get used more than a 10-page report they have to leaf through and find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
just quick.
Yeah, we all need that, right?
Absolutely. Teachers too. A lot of our teachers, when we've talked about technology assessments, their main concern is we do too much already and there's no time in the day as it is. So that's one other thing that we are going to need to tackle in our school. We're part of the Achievement Network, so we take testing in addition to our main school testing. So every quarter we have students taking assessments to really gauge where we're going. So there's a lot of testing at our school, as there are most schools, but just the time in the day is a huge concern with our teachers.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I liked just for the look of it was learning.com. they had one of their assessment tools, and I haven't looked at it this year. Their assessments, they mimicked, now move a file to the server, and it's kind of like a Flash widget where you're actually moving a file to the server. So it instead of just being a survey, it's a little bit more hands-on, and I like that aspect of it. But I'm not sure if they've included more, intervention methods as well.
Oh, I see. They have the 21st Century Skills Assessment, Tech Literacy.
Yeah. And they were one that I like the look of.
I'm just going to put this here in the chat so I can add it as links to the bottom maybe later. Another thing I was thinking about for measuring effectiveness of technology, because I may not be able to sign up with Bright Bytes or use Learning.com's tools, I'm trying to think of what I can do within our own district with no cost. And what I'm thinking about and wondering if it's a good idea is similar to what David Terrio, his session suggestion was on show your work. Mm-hmm. And I'm really thinking about that, and I'm worried about teachers feeling overwhelmed, but I really like the idea of having, we have students do portfolios and show their work and learning over time, and I would really love to find a way to have teachers keep an ongoing portfolio of their tech integration and have them post things there, because that would be a great way for me as a tech coordinator to see, okay, is what I'm doing really effective? Are these sessions I'm holding effective? And if I see that teachers are going out there and creating and then posting what they've created, then I know, okay, they're using those skills. They're feeling good enough about what they've learned to use it. And so I'm thinking about ways, like with our Google Apps for Education, we have Haiku Learning as a learning management system, and even having teachers create something in Haiku, creating up a place, or maybe a Google Plus community where they can share work. I'm not sure what to do yet, but what are your thoughts on kind of pushing teachers in the direction, because they're not always willing?
No, they aren't. And I mean, we've had a lot of resistance just in terms of learning communities. We've tried to do it a few times where we've done surveys. What are you interested in learning in technology? Are you interested in smart boards? Are you interested in Google Forms? Whatever. And we've had people sign up, but there really hasn't been any. And I think this might be sort of an administrative thing where there hasn't been that push that we're trying to build in. But there has been a lot of resistance to just time in the day to use the technology. So I think that's a lot of what we're thinking about. One of the things I've been thinking in terms of assessing what teachers are doing, I thought about online portfolios when I first started my job for teachers. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of shut down pretty quickly for our school, just time in the day sort of thing. But we do portfolios for our students as well, so that was part of what put it in my mind. But I've been thinking a lot about doing more observations and learning walks and trying to come up with some sort of matrix or rubric to kind of gauge how teachers are doing with their technology. And I haven't gotten too far in the planning process with it all, but I've looked at a few different matrices that are out there to kind of assess teachers. But I mean, the topic of assessing teachers is always a hot button one, and just that's one that I've been very carefully in planning through. But it's something that's been on my mind too, even if it's informal, just so that teachers have a sense of ways that we can push what you're doing. So observing what they're doing and trying to come up with recommendations, I think, is the tack that I'm trying to take. But
yeah, I think that through my own learning, having been on Twitter now for a couple years, really liking Google Plus, blogging. I've been blogging for a while now, and risking. I know it's a risk every time I post a blog post or share something on Twitter. That's a risk I put out there. I show something I've done, and I get feedback on that. But I tell you what, it has skyrocketed my learning and skills. And so I think more than thinking I'm going to assess teachers, because that's really not what I'm wanting to do. I want to assess me, how I'm doing with my job as tech integrator. by encouraging and showing them the power of that sharing, on getting on the social media, sharing what you're doing, because I tell you, it's just so rewarding. And I've met the most amazing people, and like right now I'm connecting with you, somebody who's wanting to know the same stuff I'm wanting to know. And so I'm trying to think about how I can approach it from that point of, it's not an assessment of you, it's a growth model for you, that continual improvement cycle you want to be on as an educator. And it's fun, it's connecting, it's talking with people. It's not just a portfolio that's like, oh, I have to submit this. It's more interactive and dynamic.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I mean, that's my interest in it too. It's not wanting to assess the teachers, but assessing the school, assessing me, assessing the technology program and everything of how we're doing. So it's more holistic. And I don't know, we haven't done too much with Twitter at our school, partly because even though I'm on Twitter and I do use it, it's something that I find mandatory. I'm sort of an introvert, and it's very hard for me to get out there. It takes events like Edcamps that make it easier for me, but going online just saying, oh, I want to share this with a bunch of strangers, for me, it's always a hard push. So trying to make that push for teachers too, I'm all into it and I believe it, but for me it's always a hard push. And it's trying to get that across to teachers, for me, sometimes he's disingenuous, but I know it's something I've struggled with personally.
It is. I think it's growth. It's continuous. We're never going to arrive. It's something we're always working on. And so I know that by being an example, and I'm not usually afraid of putting myself out there. I don't mind not doing well in front of people. I figure, you know what? We're all human. But I hope that by that example that other teachers see that and feel the energy and feel that draw to this wonderful way to learn and to improve by sharing your work. I really wish I was able to attend that Show Your Work session. I'm going to buy the book. I think there was a book called Show Your Work that David Terrio shared.
Yeah, coming out in March or something, I think. Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm hoping that it'll just, we do need to have some formal assessments, I think, in place, because we need to know that the money we're spending on this tech is being used, but then maybe have some of that more not as formal personal learning, demonstration of effectiveness as well.
Yeah, I think I agree.
So I think we're almost out of time, and I know we don't want to miss the slam. Did you have any other things you wanted to mention or share?
No, I think this was really helpful for me. I'm really excited about the Bright Bites, and just the conversation has been helpful. But I think big picture, I think I'm going to try and double down and be a little bit better about talking about social media with the teachers and getting a lot of them on board. We have a bunch that are, but most, I think, as the majority don't. And leveraging that as a school and for the teachers is something I think that probably is a good goal to set.
Well, and what I'm starting with right now is Google Plus communities. So we're setting up one for a school to have their own community to share on, so it's private, it's only for them, because a lot of them are worried about being global, and I get that. So the first step might be to just have a community for your grade level, your school. And we have some grade level ones. We have a 4th grade teacher community on Google Plus. It's just rocking it. They share everything there. They connect easily. They're really using it and loving it. So I'm trying to get a school to use it next. And that might be a way to get teachers introduced to it who aren't using it, and also a place for teachers who are using social media to really share and connect with other people and be that model. Yeah.
So with Google, are you using Google Apps for Education and have turned on Plus? Is that?
Yes, we turn it on for teachers only, not students.
Okay. So you can turn it on for the students. Okay, I think that was one of our concerns. We haven't looked at Plus too much for teachers, but it's something to think about, I think.
It's nice because you have that ability to have these online spaces that are private, and I love that, where they can post everything from archived hangouts, pictures, links in this one place that other people can't go and visit. And teachers, I like that because they have the ability to keep things private that need to be maybe not global yet,
Yeah, that's interesting. And have you thought about doing Haiku for that, or just teachers? Or is there much of a system with Haiku? I know that with Schoology you can share amongst teachers a little bit easier, but
I thought about doing it with haiku, but I'm worried right now. One, I need the time to go set all this up in haiku, and then I'm worried about giving teachers one more place to go.
Yeah.
You know, they're so busy with all of our systems they have to manage, but I definitely would like to look at haiku or some learning management system and work at implementing that with teachers too, and giving them a place to share also.
Yeah, I think that's my concern too, is having one more place. If they're already going to Schoology for their courses, if they had to go somewhere else for their teacher, we have a lot of sites for our teachers.
And what do you use Schoology for?
We use Schoology for the communication between students and teachers. So each teacher has a Schoology page for all of their courses, and they post their homework and post any important updates. Some teachers use it a lot. Some teachers do as bare minimum as they can, but it's sort of a range. We've been rolling it out. We had Moodle before and switched to Schoology this year.
Nice.
And just the ease of use has been a lot better, for sure. But,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't want us to miss the slam. I see people are starting to sign up for the slam. So,
great. Okay.
Kip, it was great meeting you.
Great meeting you too, Ray. Thanks.
All right, and I hope to see you on Twitter and other places.
Will do. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
See ya.